Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's start our video with a story about realizing when it's time to cut ties and take back what's yours. Literally. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. I'm the a-hole, and a decade later, I'm still not sorry. I'm currently 31-year-old female, but it all started when I was 20-ish. There was a horrific, traumatic loss in my life. As I was down spiraling in grief, I moved in with my older cousin Amy, who I had generally always been close with. She had a munchkin who was almost 1 at the time. I ended up living with them for about 3 years until the night it all fell apart. At the time it all unraveled, I worked midnights. I would keep my midnight sleep schedule during the week, but would flop to a normal sleep schedule on weekends so I could spend as much time with my BF as possible, as he had to drive an hour one way just to visit weekly. Pure chaos, but I was thriving, so whatever. I survived. The night it all went down was the night I was flopping from midnight life to normal human sleep schedule, so I'd been awake for almost 24 hours by 8 p.m. Myself, my BF, Amy's BF, Steve, and our mutual friend were all gathered at our place for some drinks. When Steve arrived, he took Amy so they could get a top-up of booze before we cracked anything open. They said they'd be 30 minutes tops and asked us to wait. 40 minutes went by. I texted to see how far off they were. The answer I got was vague. Whatever, Amy's weird like that sometimes. I texted again at an hour, then 15 minutes after that. Another text at an hour and a half. Always vague responses without any real information. I was getting frustrated. Again, we weren't going to start drinking until they got back. They knew this, and more importantly, Amy knew that if I didn't get some booze in me by 9 or 9:30, I'd be down for the count. I made sure to remind her of this several times. The booze was what was going to keep me conscious for the night. I'd have started drinking without her if she'd told me she was going to be a while, but she didn't tell me what was happening or give any indication of a time frame, even when I'd specifically ask. We just sat around miffed, thinking Amy and Steve were right around the corner to be back any moment. When they finally came back through the door over 2 hours later, they had Steve's dog as a surprise. I don't remember what I said, but I yelled I was effing furious at how inconsiderate of a decision that was, and my tired state didn't help with my emotional regulation. I mean, sure, get the dog, but tell us you'll be a bit and that we should start drinking without you, not that you'll be right back and to just wait. After the hour mark, I honestly only stayed awake to rip her a new one. She didn't understand why I was so mad. We argued briefly before I just went to bed, but the argument continued the next day. During that bit, she threatened that if I left, she'd never let me see her daughter again. That was it. Decision made. I won't let you use your daughter like that with me, and I won't subject myself to that sort of manipulation. I started re-examining her past behavior as I packed and realized Amy was never a good person. She was always cruel and rude whenever the opportunity would present itself, no matter who she was speaking to. Once at a mutual friend's birthday party, she directly told the birthday girl, who was a large woman, that she should never lose weight because then she'd be prettier than her. Similarly, she seemed very frustrated when I went through an insane fitness shape and was suddenly in better shape than her. Amy never helped with my depression or grief like I'd convinced myself she did. In fact, she pretty much flat out ignored it, even when I told her I was having thoughts. Amy was a bully, meaner than Regina George kind of bully. It wasn't the first time she showed her true colors, but it was the first time I could consciously see her for who she was. With all that and a million other consistently toxic and selfish memories ranging from childhood to adulthood, I moved out within the next 48 hours. But, here's where I became the a-hole of this story. I took something that was technically not mine. It was something I'd gifted her a month before for Christmas. You see, I bought a really nice, really considerate, and expensive gift for my loving, caring cousin who supported me through many trying times in my life. But while re-examining everything on that last day, I realized that Amy had none of those qualities. She wasn't nice, she was mean. She wasn't considerate, she was self-absorbed. And she was about as supportive as damp cardboard. The woman I thought Amy was never existed in the first place. Since my gift was for someone who apparently didn't exist, I effing took it with me. I know that it 5,000% makes me an a-hole, and I don't think I'd make the same choices were I able to do it over. But I still don't regret taking that $1,000 couch with me. It's still in my living room a decade later. Not sorry. ETA, since this has popped up a few times, she took me in because she needed a roommate and help with childcare. I took her up on it for some company to distract from my grief. We agreed to split bills 40-60 since I was going to help with childcare. Found out that I was the one paying closer to 60 when I asked her what 50% would be for my last month. She gets no points for taking me in. Wait, alcohol, the central nervous system depressant, was going to keep you awake? What is this upside-down metabolism you have? Does coffee make you sleepy? And our second story. Don't like my cooking? Guess you don't need it. So my college friend Gina, who graduated 2 years prior to me, but we still keep in touch, told me about how she dealt with her disrespectful mother-in-law, Lana, who always had an opinion about how Gina did things. Gina and her husband live together in a house. It even has an office for her work as a data analyst, but it also is close to Lana's house, who was widowed 5 years prior, meaning she got frequent visits from her where she would always comment on every little thing from her cooking, cleaning, even job. She was of the belief that Gina's office was actually a game room / streaming setup due to the similar look. Several monitors, I don't know. And at first, Gina let it slide for the first 2 months, but when Lana wouldn't let up, she told her husband, Rick, to do something about his mother's comments. Now, I personally have met Rick twice, and from the get-go, he seemed like someone who doesn't like confrontation. So when she told us about how he hadn't done anything about his mom, we weren't surprised. Don't get me wrong, he's very nice and supportive. He just dragged his heels on telling his mother to stop sharing her opinion about Gina and her lifestyle. Gina decided to comply with Lana's requests and told us how she did it. For the past several months, every time Lana would insult her cooking, cleaning, or job, she wouldn't do any of those things for her for 2 weeks. She said that it started small with her saying that the baked chicken she made was so bland, despite already eating it. So Gina cooked for herself and Rick, but not for Lana. Didn't even give her a plate when the 2 weeks were up and she finally cooked for her. Gina says she dug in like a wild dog into meat. But to me, that just shows she really did enjoy the food. She just wanted to be mean. Gina says that she similarly did this when she criticized her job, meaning she wouldn't buy her Lana anything when she asked nor lend her money. Gina ended by telling us that Lana is much more behaved now, meaning she's not as openly opinionated as before, and comes over to their home less often. Gina and Rick did have a fight or two over Gina's actions, which, to be fair, were spiteful. But if I'm honest, if Rick had just talked to his mom like Gina asked, this could have been avoided. But that's not my place to say. They talked it out. He apologized for his inaction. And right now, Gina says it's all stable for now. This was such a funny get-back story. I just had to share it with people. She followed her mother-in-law's orders, just not the way Lana wanted her to. Update. So I met up with Gina not too long ago. She and her husband talked things out some more and even took a therapy session or two. And Rick ended up taking responsibility for not doing something about his mother and getting mad at Gina for retaliating against her. Divorce and separation are completely out the window, and Rick finally had that talk with his mom, so things are good for Gina now. I don't understand how Gina's actions were spiteful. Lana didn't like her food, so Gina didn't give her any food. If anything, it's normal. One could even say it's kind. And our last story. The neighbor from hell tried to steal part of our land. 3 years ago, we bought our house with nearly 6 acres of land, and just this year, we finally managed to afford a full survey of the property. Turns out our neighbor, who we've had a contesting property line issue with, refused to get a survey done on her end. She insisted that her old rickety fence was the true property line. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. The survey revealed that her so-called boundary was off by as much as 13 feet, encroaching deep into our property in some places. When we confronted her with the survey results, she had the nerve to offer us $1,000 to keep the line where it was. That might sound reasonable, except we paid $1,300 for the survey alone, not to mention the value of the land we'd be giving up. We told her flat out that wasn't feasible. We weren't about to pay out of pocket to lose our land, and frankly, we didn't want to sell any of it anyway. She didn't take that well. In fact, we heard through the grapevine that she's been telling the woman who leases a spot for her ponies on her land that she's planning to lawyer up and try for adverse possession of our land. But even our surveyor assured us she doesn't have a leg to stand on. We've done everything by the book, and our property taxes have been fully paid up since the day we bought this place. To make matters worse, her propane tank and dog kennel are smack dab on our land. We initially tried to be neighborly, told her we could draft up an agreement allowing her to keep them there until she eventually sells her home, but that wasn't good enough for her. No, she wanted the whole chunk of our property fair and square. Despite all this tension, we had a civil conversation about the new fence we both wanted to build to separate our farm animals. We even agreed on the fence being placed on the true property line, standing right there together with the fence contractor. But just when I thought we were on the same page, she pulled a fast one, went behind our backs trying to steal our property through legal trickery. This morning, after catching wind of her underhanded schemes, I decided enough was enough. I sent her a text explaining that we were no longer comfortable with her stuff being on our property and gave her until September 30th to move everything. That's more than 30 days' notice, more than generous according to our surveyor who advised us to demand immediate removal. But it didn't end there. She blew up, acting like the entitled neighbor from hell, calling us ungrateful and throwing a fit about how we were destroying the neighborhood vibe. So we took matters into our own hands. We built a beautiful new fence right along the true property line, standing tall and proud. With that fence in place, our land is now fully secured, and there's no way she's getting her hands on a single inch of it. She can keep her tantrums. We've got the law on our side and a brand new fence to prove it. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.